Welcome, I'm Glenn Anderson, producer and host of this TV series, Glenn's Parallax Perspectives. This series explores a wide variety of issues related to peace, social and economic justice, the environment, and nonviolent social change. We especially provide opportunities for the public to hear voices and viewpoints that are rarely heard in mainstream media. Mainstream media, politicians, and culture see the world in conventional ways. The establishment is stuck in how they see the world. In order to solve problems, we need to see things differently. This TV series, Glenn's Parallax Perspectives, can help us see things differently so we can solve problems at all levels, from the local to the global. This series is called Glenn's Parallax Perspectives. Here's what the word parallax means. Put one finger in front of your nose and another finger farther away. Close one eye, then open that eye and close the other. Your fingers will seem to move. This is called a parallax view. This TV series invites you to look at issues from fresh perspectives. Also, see much information about the issues that we cover in this TV series and previous episodes of this series at my blog, www.parallaxperspectives.org. And now I invite you to watch this month's program. This month's interview on Glenn's Parallax Perspectives provides fresh insights and a creative alternative that can get the whole world unstuck from nationalistic antagonisms. Thousands of years of wars have not brought peace. The promoters of World War I promised that it would be the war to end all wars. Have we had a century of peace since 1918? When we're chronically stuck in a dysfunctional system, we need to challenge the long-standing assumptions. We need to think creatively, think outside the box, and choose positive alternatives. Instead of narrow nationalism and wars, two guests and some visuals help us explore the exciting alternative, world citizenship. I'm happy to welcome two guests who have studied this extensively and produced a feature film promoting it. I'm happy to welcome Arthur Kanigis and Melanie Bennett. Hey,
Thank you so much, Glenn. We love being on your show.
Oh, we're going to have a good time here. This is fun, and it's going to be fun for people watching it because they'll learn something new and they'll get not only head level but heart level progress. So this will be fun.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A moment ago, I said that we're stuck in nationalism and militarism. And Arthur, for decades, you've been working for positive alternatives. During this hour, we'll flesh out your insights into the problems and solutions. Right now, could you just summarize the problems and solutions that we'll flesh out later?
Well, the key thing, as you said, is that we have this myth that somehow it's the myth of the hero with the big gun, that violence can somehow win, and that there's power to military power. But that turns out to be an illusion. 20 years of war in Afghanistan showed there was no power. Fighting the Soviet Union for decades, there was no power. So where is the real power? And I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is that Gary Davis, the founder of the World Citizen Movement, kind of revealed the top secret that can put us, we the people, back on top. You see, the corporations have all the power because we're locked in these boxes called nation states while they're roaming the world freely, making all the decisions. And we have to find a way to break out of that box.
Great. And I'm glad that Arthur and Melanie and other people are saying that the emperor has no clothes. That's what we need, is that kind of a bold recognition that, hey, this whole thing's a sham, and we need to expose that sham and get on with solving the problems.
Yeah, the very definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again when it doesn't work. War has not worked, and yet we keep doing it.
Right. The problems are entrenched in top-down systems like nationalism and militarism. And in order to solve the problems, we need to work from the bottom up. I'm a great supporter of nonviolent grassroots movements. It's got to be bottom up if we're going to solve the problems. We need a grassroots people power movement. And so, Melanie, I want to ask you how you understand the feelings of ordinary people. Does the public want endless war, or does the public want better alternatives?
Well, so happy to be here, Glenn. I think people would be thrilled to live without war. It's just they don't see how to do it, and they may not think it's possible. So we're hoping to open people's minds to how to live without war, and showing them how to do that. So
yeah. People get so trapped. One of the things that happens when you're stuck and trapped is you don't see a way out. So it's like what happens in you get an abusive relationship where the person who's being abused doesn't know how to escape or doesn't feel powerful enough to escape. And that seems like where we're at with this nation state endless war model that we just can't seem to get out of. Both of you and also I support this creative alternative about recognizing global citizenship. This is a practical solution, but almost nobody knows about it. Arthur's wearing a shirt that maybe you could stand up and show us the World Citizen, the World is My Country shirt with the website on it. So that's one way to illustrate. I wonder, Arthur, could you summarize the concept of world citizenship and why it is practical, not just a head thing, but why it could actually work? What's the concept and why is it practical?
Well, the key thing is that when we identify ourselves as world citizens, either with a T-shirt like that or with the world passport or in other ways, when we make that identity switch, we make a little click in our minds. We go from being the governed, the people who are pushed around by these governments in order to what to do, to actually becoming the governors of our small planet. What do people do when they're citizens? They get together and they create ways of governing. We see it all over the place, whether you go to a frontier or anywhere else. Well, on the planet, we currently have no way to govern our planet. No way. I mean, it's anarchy out there. It's like, say you had, it's like if you say you had a mayor, you had a city with no mayor, no city council, no way to govern, just various factions fighting each other. The strongest dominates. I mean, obviously everybody would be suffering and dying. The only way we can get it together is to raise our citizenship to the top level, to the global level. And Gary revealed really the top secret about how to do that.
Yeah, Gary Davis, who we'll talk about in a moment. So your example with the city would be if we had no municipal government, no city government, the powerful decisions will get made by the worst bullies and the people with the most guns. And that's what we have at the world scene. We see this all the time at the world level. It's the worst bullies and the people with the most guns that get to throw their weight around. And we need to have like what we think of as a city government, but a government, a democracy at a global level. And you're trying to help us shift our thinking to that. So
because Gary said, humanity has already invented a system that eliminates war. Inside countries with one government, we don't fight wars. What about civil wars? Well, that's when you have two sovereignties, two governing agents. But when everybody accepts one government system, then you solve your problems in court. You don't go to war. One state doesn't go to war against another. They take it to court.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk some more about Gary Davis' insights and bold actions, because he did some really bold things that are fun to explore. Decades ago, there's a guy named Gary Davis. He was an actor, singer, dancer from the US, and he proposed world citizenship as a smart alternative to the narrow nationalism that has us trapped in endless violence around the world. And both of you have been working very hard and very creatively for a long number of years to promote Gary Davis's bold vision of replacing war and narrow nationalism with world citizenship. And Arthur produced a 28-minute film. After you've watched this interview, go watch that 28-minute film that Arthur produced in 1983. And before he tells you about the film, which I'll ask him to do in just a moment, I just want to mention that Paul Newman is featured in it, and the film was released in 1983. It supports the nuclear weapons freeze campaign from 1982 that really swept the nation. And back then, you might remember, people were arguing about numbers of nuclear warheads versus US versus Soviet Union, how much megatonnage of the weapons, and all these number things. And the freeze movement came along and says,
stop arguing about these numbers. Let's just stop, just freeze the arms race now. No more research and development, no more production, no more deployment. Just stop the nuclear weapons thing now. And the public could easily understand that because it's a simple concept, and you don't have to argue about the mathematics of nuclear weapons statistics. So different parts of the country put this on the local ballot in 1982, and it won virtually everywhere, including here in Thurston County, Washington, where I live. And I had worked very hard on the nuclear weapons freeze campaign, which we organized in just less than 1 year and won on the November 1982 ballot with 62.5% of the vote.
That film was decades before we did the movie about Gary Davis, but it was a powerful way of showing the alternatives to the current conflicts where we're ready to destroy the world. And it gave us a clue to how to get away from that.
Yeah. Arthur, can you tell us a bit more about this? It makes a compelling case for stopping the arms race. Tell us about producing this film back then.
Right. Well, that was, again, before we got into Gary Davis's ideas. But basically what happened is that I was working with Paul Newman, and I was the researcher on the film the day after the movie that showed Jason Robards walking through the ruins of nuclear war, and that over 100 million Americans and 200 million Soviets saw it, and it had a powerful impact. Ronald Reagan said that in his memoirs, credited it with convincing him that nuclear war was unwinnable, and he had to start negotiations for reducing weapons with the Soviet Union. Because before that, he actually believed as generals when they were saying we could fight and win a nuclear war, and they were egging him on. And I'm not sure that the current presidents aren't fooled by that with their generals, and that they don't need to see a film about the reality of what nuclear war would do. But War Without Winners, then we had Haskell Wexler working with us, and we went to the Soviet Union and talked to ordinary people of all walks of life. This is in the height of the Cold War, and we found they all want peace like us. They all want their families to live. We showed that this isn't some monsters that we have to fight. These are ordinary people who, just like you and I, want to live and want to have and we see that right now in the world today. We see the two giants again moving toward possible nuclear war, and now bringing in China, Russia, and America, all empires fighting each other. And the ordinary people in all these countries, they're just normal folks who would love each other if they got to connect with each other. And that's the thing then that moves into Gary's idea that we interactively begin to have these kind of Zoom kind of conferences of people with people around the world connecting as people to rise above these nations that divide us. But that emerged later after the earlier film about Paul Newman.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And you mentioned the current crisis. We're taping this program on March 10 of 2022, while this crisis with Ukraine is going. And even though Russia has a long-standing public policy of no first use, they've pledged for years and years and years that Russia would not start a nuclear war. Now Putin in Russia is threatening that he might start one anyway. The United States has never had a no first use policy. And in fact, we've dropped atomic bombs on people in Japan, civilian cities, in 1945. And so we really are in serious trouble, and we're trapped in this thing. I'm hoping that people will be alive in April 2022 to watch this on TV or to watch it on my blog in future years if we survive. Gary Davis also wrote, I'll bring this thing down. I hope people have had a chance to write down www.warwithoutwinners.com. Gary Davis also wrote a book titled My Country is the World, and you can buy it from a website that Melanie and Arthur are connected with there. He's showing the thing that My Country is the World, Gary Davis.
This is the book, My Country is the World by Gary Davis, that inspired the movie.
Uh-huh. And so that's the movie that's on Arthur's shirt. And you can buy it from their website, World Citizen Gov.
No. It's the worldismycountry.com. Go to theworldismycountry.com, and that's where you'll find out about the movie, and go to the store part and you can buy the book.
Okay, that's a better source then. Okay, let's talk about this full-length film that both of you created. I very much enjoyed watching your 83-minute film, The World is My Country. It really very effectively expresses Gary Davis's ideas for world citizenship, and it features him and his experiences, his bold actions. And I hope that people will watch the film and be inspired to take smart actions. In just a moment, they'll share their experience and insights. And now we'll show on the screen a trailer for the film that runs just a little over a minute. So watch that. It features Martin Sheen. And the website for this trailer that we'll see is theworldismycountry.com/trailer. So you can load that up later and watch that. So let's take a moment for that. And then we'll come back and Melanie and Arthur will talk about the film.
Here's Gary Davis.
World citizen number one, Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Gary Davis.
Who, me?
You are about to hear from an everyday man with an extraordinary life story. He was an actor, a song and dance man who leapt off the Broadway stage onto the world stage in 1948, taking on cops, border guards, armies, and whole nations, showing us that we don't have to be awed by their props of power and control. For 65 years, as a citizen of no nation, only the world, Gary Davis made his own props of freedom, demonstrating that we, the people, can tear down the walls of oppression and write our own story. We can build a world that is constructive for all and destructive to none. A world in which all of us can truly say, the world is my country.
So, Melanie, would you tell us about your role and Arthur's role in creating this film?
Yes, my goodness, it's been an incredible, incredible journey. Arthur and I are basically the core creators of the film, but we have Jordan Byrne, who is the editor. And if you ever watch a film, films are so collaborative. You have credits and credits and credits. So tons of people have been involved in the film at certain points, but we're so thrilled that we got it finished, and now we're on to promoting it.
Okay, but you're promoting it again, right?
Oh, I can tell you all about that. So yes, so what happened was we were so fortunate. We actually have already gone out on PBS affiliates, over 100 of those. And we had a very nice rotary spot before it, because you can have sponsors before the film. And now the new latest thing is this year, 2022, we have another opportunity, but to go out on Link TV, which is DirecTV and Dish Network. So that goes out to 31 million, broadcast to 31 million people. And so this is a great opportunity for an organization that would like to say, brought to you by. Mm-hmm. So you can be in front of the film, and that's exciting for us.
Yeah. So Arthur, what else can you tell us about creating the film, The World Is My Country?
Well, Gary Davis was a friend of mine for a quarter of a century. He was a song and dance man on Broadway who was so upset when he got drafted into World War II, and he was ordered to bomb the city of Brandenburg. And at the same time, his own brother was killed. And he said, my God, why am I killing other people's brothers and families? This is crazy. I'm here to make people laugh and entertain them, not blow them up in their homes and schools and factories. And he got back from the war and he was struggling. What can I do? How can I, he saw the Hiroshima footage and my God, humanity's in trouble. But, I'm just an actor. What can I do? Well, he came up with a brilliant idea. He went to Paris, where the UN was meeting back in those days.
That was before they had the UN building in New York City.
Right. It hadn't been built yet. The 1948, they met in Paris. And he managed to leap up in the middle of the session and say, the nations you represent divide us and and push us to the brink of nuclear of suicide. Basically, he said we need one government for one world, arising from the people, and if you won't do it, a People's World Assembly will rise from our ranks to do it. Well, this galvanized war-weary Europe, and Albert Camus and Sartre and Albert Einstein and all these famous intellectuals joined him in this quest, and they held this huge rally in Paris on December 9th, 1948. And the very next day, they were demanding that the UN recognize the rights of humanity. And the very next day, the Soviets, who'd been adamantly blocking the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they shifted their policy, they dropped the objection, and they let it get passed unanimously. And so Gary really helped play a role in moving us forward for the first time, the nations of the world recognizing that everybody on earth has rights and freedoms.
Yeah, and we'll cover that a bit further in just a moment when Melanie can talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and a relevant part of that. This is the thing that Eleanor Roosevelt had championed and led the way for. So it's all connected. All these things are interconnected. It's exciting. I want to explore with you, Arthur, a bit further the vision and the practicality of world citizenship. What would be the benefits of rising above nationalism and recognizing world citizenship as our primary loyalty beyond what you've already said?
Well, I think the key is that Gary realized that right now we've been like constantly all over begging and pleading our government leaders to make peace and to stop wars and so on. And what happens is they're on the wrong civic level. They can't do it. They exist because they're loyal to the part, not the whole. They have to protect us from the dangerous other. And the only people with the power to do it is the real superpower, that is we, the people of the world. And now what happens is, see, originally corporations were set up underneath the people. They had a charter for 20 years. If they didn't serve the public good, it could get revoked. They were supposed to serve the public good. But because we, the people, are locked in those boxes called nation states, and they were operating globally, they said, well, if you stop us from polluting, if you tax us, we'll just move to other countries. And then they gained all the money and power, and they came out on top, and they bought the best politicians money could buy. And so they began to control all the governments, to control all of us. And we couldn't affect them because how can you legislate to stop them from doing it when you're locked in this box called nation states? You can't stop companies from polluting if they can just go elsewhere. So right. Only by, some people try to force them back in the box. We'll stop their campaign contributions. We'll force them. We can't. We, the people, have to take our rightful place on top. We can't force them in the box. We have to break out of our box and come to the top where we belong. I mean, we are the sovereigns. We're the ones who create government. Look, the Universal Declaration, the Declaration of Independence says it is the right of the people to institute new government. Well, who are they talking about? Old guys in gray wigs, or you and I? If we have the right to institute government, then Gary said, duh, what are we doing in this box? Why don't we just create government at the global level? We, the people, do it.
Right. We, a lot of people locally here know that I hold signs on street corners twice a week for peace and human rights and nonviolence. One of the signs says, all people are one human family. And folks who drive by or folks who walk by really feel affirmed by that, because you might be heavily overweight, but you know that you're included. You might have piercings, metal piercings in your body, but you know that you're included. You might be of the wrong religion or the wrong sexual orientation, but you know you're included. All people are one human family is a very welcoming and inclusive thing, and we need to practice that in our global politics. Also, I have one that I hold a lot that says, we all share one world. Exactly. So at this time of pandemic, we have a global pandemic, and that transcends all the borders. We can't say, oh, let's just have the Americans be secure, but let the rest of the world get sick. No, the stuff spins around the world. The climate is global. All these problems that we have are global. If we have a nuclear war, the radiation will circle the globe and cause nuclear winter that would cause global destruction. So we have to recognize that the problems are global and the solution has to be global. And so that's why I'm so enthusiastic about what you're doing. It's good for peace, but also it's valid. This really is a global situation, and we need people to understand that and not say, oh, I'm just part of this tribe or I'm part of that tribe.
Right. Well,
so-
and we don't have to get rid of those tribes. We just have to say that our primary loyalty is at the global level. Yes, we're still Americans, we're still Native Americans, we're still all of our different identities, but we need to add the top level to that identity. And once we do that, we also need to invent new systems. You know, in 1776, it was a great invention to send people by a horse and buggy to a distant city to govern forests, because there was no telephone, there was no internet, there was none of that. But right now, we don't have to, have representatives meet in the same room. We could all meet in the global room, and we're starting to do it with these Zoom meetings all over the world. And Gary was talking about a whole synergistic system where small groups like this, of these kind of Zoom meetings, but across the boundaries that divide us, you know, Arabs and Jews together, people on opposite sides of issues, using a certain protocol that brings them not to who's right and who's wrong, but what are the fundamental wants and needs of each of us? What do each of us want for the planet? And we find commonality, and we can start creating the will of the people at the global level. And, you know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, the authority of government shall be based on the will of the people. But where do we get to express the will of the people at the global level? We can't do it. We can't elect any representatives. We can't do anything. Well, we can't sit around and wait for them, this broken nation state system, to give it to us. You know, it wasn't called the application for independence. It was the Declaration for Independence. You don't apply to the UN. Oh, please fix this. Please let us govern the world. No, we the people just do it. And we have the tools now with the internet. And once we catch the vision, once we catch Gary's idea, we are powerfully inventive species. We can invent these incredible, look, we thought money had to be put out by companies. Now we're already discovering, you know, cyber currencies. We thought so many of these things, we thought we were locked in that nation state box, are breaking out of it. Now we just have to break governance out of that box and realize that we don't have to do it with the old weak force, military power. We do it with the real power, our purchasing power, our power to have an app in our phone that scans products. Oh, this company is a world law violator. Beep, beep, beep. I'm not going to buy their product. Oh, this company, oh, they're green. They're serving the environment. I buy that one. You know, when you go to invest in stocks, when you go to apply for jobs, if we put our loyalty with the companies and the people that are serving the world, once we create these, once we accept that we have world laws that we, the people, have the right to enforce, then we can create the tools to do it. And we don't have to stay stuck in this nation state box where we're out of control and we're heading toward the end of our very planet.
Right. Yeah. The traditional notion is that there's this pyramid with a few powerful people on top, and our job on the bottom is to be powerless, but to ask the few powerful people on top, please do the right thing. And what you're proposing is that we turn the pyramid upside down and recognize we the people are in charge, just like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and all those people said, we the people are in charge, and so we can create the government. And now we need to create a global system with we the people in charge. So I'm right with you on that.
We are the superpower, and the only reason why we're a sleeping superpower and a weak superpower is because we've allowed them to lock us in these boxes called nation states. Once we break out of that box, we the people can do it. And you know, it doesn't matter. Republicans and Democrats, when you get together in the right frame, most of us still want the same thing: a better life for our kids, a better life for our grandkids. You know, it's not that difficult. Humanity wants the same kind of things. If we can just break out of these myths and things that are dividing us, and get to what is it that we really want? What is the will of the people at the global level?
Yep. And Melanie, when we were preparing for the program, you mentioned something that we've already mentioned a few minutes ago about a lot of well-known people, Camus and Sartre and others have encouraged world citizenship as a concept. I know you could mention Albert Einstein and Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, yes.
When we were preparing for the program, you mentioned those. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to say about prominent people from past or present who are on our side with this? Martin Sheen, the actor, of course.
Yes, Martin Sheen. Well, Socrates, it goes way back. I mean, we're not the first to mention world citizenship. So Socrates, Gandhi, and you said Charlie Chaplin, Martin Luther King, so many people feel like they are world citizens and felt this way and couldn't
key women too, right?
What I'm going to, what I wanted to mention mostly is we have in our movie, Lola Maverick Lloyd, and she, along with Rosika Schwimmer, made did an organization called the Campaign for World Government. And that was back in 1937. So
Yeah.
A lot of people involved, and a lot of people are world citizens.
Now, this 83-minute film that you folks and other folks created really is amazing. And Melanie, can you share some enthusiastic comments from people who've watched it and been inspired by that? This is The World Is My Country. And go ahead.
Yes, here you have you can go to this link, it's /comments, and I'll just say quickly this one. This is truly enlightening for me. And to tell you the truth, I have always whispered to myself that I'm a global citizen. And then we have, I cry. People get so emotional. It just touches people so deeply. This person said, I cried. I was so deeply moved. And your film showed me I'm not alone or crazy. Thank you so much. There are just tons and tons of these. We get comments. It just goes up, tons and tons of comments. And so it is just so rewarding for us as filmmakers to see how we've touched people. And we're so thrilled to have the movie out and on TV.
Yeah, so
literally hundreds of people. When we had it on TV, literally, and we had it at film festivals, literally hundreds of people poured in their comments. So we had standing ovations at the film festivals. We had, three sold out showings at one festival and so on. So once people get to see this, they all have that feeling. Yes, well, I've always felt like this. Why hasn't somebody said this?
Yeah. I watched it through the website that you folks have, and it's very, very impressive. And I want to watch it again. I've been telling people about it. Melanie, I want to follow up with you about something that we mentioned already. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights has, among other good things in it, Article 13.2 that's relevant to what we're talking about here. Can you tell us about the World Service Authority and the World Passport, and then show us your copy of the World Passport?
Sure. Well, the World Service Authority, that's the arm of the World Citizen Government. And that's the website you were going to say before, worldcitizengov.org. So this passport, you saw Arthur showed it, derives its mandate from Article 13.2. I'll show you without my birth date. And here, by the way, here is the World Citizen flag, which is not a man or woman. It's expressly a human being. So so the Article 13.2 states, everyone can leave any country, including their own, and return to their country. So this is an actual human rights document giving, it's very powerful, especially for people who don't have, you leave, you're running from bombs and you don't have any ID. There's been refugees that it's been life-saving for. It's an amazing document. It can be an identification document. You can use it for all sorts of things. And it's an important thing that you can touch and hold, that kind of, for me, I feel empowered by it because it brings my mind up to this level. And like Arthur said, you don't have to lose your national or your city or whatever level, but it makes you think, okay, I care about the entire world. I care about everyone in the world, and everyone is important. So it transcends that nationalism. And I mentioned to both of you during our preparation that I remember decades ago, there's an elderly guy in Seattle who, during the Cold War, this was decades ago, he was going to get a small boat and go from the western tip of Alaska to the eastern tip of the Soviet Union and just show up and say, I'm a world citizen. I don't have a passport to come here. I'm just showing up because I will not be constrained by national boundaries. So it's, again, another example of what Melanie had said, that there's all kinds of people over the years that have come up with this idea. It's like the 100th monkey thing, where all of a sudden everybody has that consciousness. And this elderly guy from Seattle was one of those. So that's fun to see that happen. Arthur, a moment ago, you mentioned how the global dynamics of the giant business corporations that not only transcend the nations, but are now more powerful than national governments, have corrupted governments and hurt the global environment. We all share one environment around the world. We all share one climate. And as you mentioned, they threaten, if some government says, oh, we're going to hold you accountable for abusing the workers, or we're going to hold you accountable for
abusing the environment. They say, oh, we're just going to shut down here and we'll move our factories to some other country. That shows who's really in charge, and we really need to reclaim that. So I just want to, this is at this point in my notes, and we've already talked about that. I just want to reinforce that concept. This is another very practical application of how the global consciousness and the global accountability needs to transcend the private interest of private corporations. I want to check back with Melanie. You mentioned during our preparation for this interview the larger problem of hierarchies overall. You're saying instead of these hierarchies, we need to have a partnership consciousness and practical aspects of partnership. Can you tell us in just like 2 minutes why partnership is better than hierarchies?
Yes, in 2 minutes. Well, there's a social scale. So for societies, there's a scale you can rate a society on. So on one end of this scale is the domination, where it's a hierarchy, and you have in and out groups, and you have force and fear to keep, and violence and war to keep those people on top. So that people aren't creative, you lose all your human rights and things like that. So that's one side. The other side is a partnerism society, and it has a hierarchy as well because we're kind of geared towards that, but it's a hierarchy of actualization, meaning that the respect doesn't just flow from the bottom up, it's also the top down. The power doesn't flow just down, it's also up. And accountability down and up. So it goes both ways. Everybody counts. Creativeness flourishes because you can feel more yourself. It's just a more caring society where everyone matters.
Yeah.
That 2 minutes.
Yeah, we did. That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a kind of different change of consciousness. And this is relevant at the global level and down to the national level, the local level, the family level. I mean, we need to have this whole kind of shift, and then that shift is relevant at all levels, from the family level to the global level. So these a lot of what we need to do is to have heart level changes, and if we can change at the heart level and at the head level and the culture level, then these other things flow from it. From the bottom up as we change. What are you showing here, Arthur?
I was just going to show you Gary's little model for, he developed this integrity system for how can all these billions of people govern our world. And what he suggested is people starting to be these small groups organized in a whole different way. The old hierarchy was the king on top and everybody else underneath, the president on top, whoever it is. If you change that structure, start with, say, a company, and you use Bucky Fuller's geodesic sphere instead, you know, the president may be on top as far as administration, coordination, but if the janitor doesn't keep the bathrooms clean and they're all overflowing and stinking, the whole place shuts down. So he's on top when it comes to running the bathrooms. But if supply doesn't supply toilet paper and soap and stuff, he can't do his job, and then we'll still have this mess. And if people aren't getting paid by personnel, then none of that works. So everybody in the organization is on top of the world in their sphere, and it's all part of one very strong interactive system. Well, what he said, we can use that as a model for global governance, where we're having these small group interactive meetings where we use this protocol that helps each of us aspire to what it is we really want. And each of these small groups are interacting with other small groups and all around the world, coming to a system where we're amalgamating the highest and best wisdom of each individual. When Melanie talked about the hierarchy of actualization, you know, that is kind of Maslow's principle, the actualization, where we're the highest and best of all we can be. We put into actuality the potential we have. And if all the people put into actuality the potential they have and get together and come up with their best wisdom, and the other people come up with their best wisdom, and you amalgamate that into the wisdom and will of the planet, we have an unstoppable force to make change and to make a better world.
Yeah. All these kinds of integrations and all of the interconnectedness of everything is what environmentalists understand. Everything in the natural world is interconnected. All the species, all the plants, animals, and we need to take that consciousness and put that into the the governance system.
Yeah.
Melanie, looks like you want to say something, or if not, I'll ask you.
Let's see. You're talking about nature. That's part of the domination system where it's man over woman, man over man, race over race, and then people over nature.
We exploiting nature instead of recognizing that we're all connected with nature.
Exactly.
A couple months ago, I did a TV program about recognizing legal rights for nature, and that's on my blog, www.parallaxperspectives.org. You can click the TV programs and then scroll and see a few months ago the program about let's recognize legal rights for nature. When we were preparing for this interview, Arthur, you mentioned your own personal journey about these kinds of issues. You mentioned your research for the 1983 ABC movie, The Day After, that showed the horrible destruction about nuclear war that in the United States. And you also told me about your youth as a Quaker and some other aspects of your decades-long journey. Can you take about 4 minutes and walk us through some relevant parts of that journey that led you to this point?
Well, let me start with one of the highlights when I was working as the nuclear war researcher for The Day After. And in order to build the sets of how much damage there was different distances from the epicenter, they needed to know what it would be. So I would be going over to the Pentagon and doing research and faxing out the information to the crew so they could build the sets. And as I was doing that research, I began to have nuclear war nightmares, and you'd wake up and you'd realize, oh my God, this is like not just the destruction of me and my family, but all history, all art, all music, all of this incredible, beautiful planet totally destroyed. And it would immobilize me. It would make me so depressed. It was hard to keep functioning. And then I thought back to this song that we learned when we were in first day school, they call it, in Friends meeting, Quaker meeting. And it's the George Fox song. He was the founder of Quakers. And it says, and the deeper I researched, the more I realized how, if you thought that was bad, it's even worse. And you start to drown in that ocean of darkness. And the song says, there's an ocean of darkness, and I drowned in the night till I came through the darkness to the ocean of light. And the light is forever, and the light makes us free. I will dwell in the glory of the light, said he. Walk in the light wherever you may be. Walk in the light wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy, shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. And I realized that it's absolutely true that the deeper you look into any one of these issues, if you thought that was bad, you really start to drown into it. I mean, all the destruction of cultures and nature, and just goes on and on, of the oceans and everything else. And you can literally drown in that darkness. And then you can also say, simultaneously, all over the world, people are helping each other, reaching out to save families, save environment, do what they can, contribute. There's beauty of nature. There's flowers blooming. There's nature regenerating when things get destroyed and they think there's no recovery. Nature finds ways to recover them and bring them back into balance. And, there's an ocean of light. And I realized that we can either let ourselves drown in that ocean of darkness. Like I take the people who are in concentration camps, and people are actually being, murdered in the ovens over here. And you could let yourself drown in that darkness and you'd be one more victim. But there were people who survived by keeping that spark of light and love alive and began administering to others and healing. So even no matter how bad things get in the world, you can make a personal choice. I realize I have to choose. Am I going to dwell in that ocean of darkness and just get so depressed nothing happens? Or am I going to choose to dwell in the ocean of light? And when you choose that, you get an incredible power that arises from within you that really keeps you motivated and really is the hope for the world. We have to connect to that ocean of light. And that's how we can save ourselves.
Great, thanks. I appreciate that. And your reference to the concentration camps made me think of Viktor Frankl's famous book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was in the concentration camps, and he had that vision of getting out and publishing what he had in mind. Anyway, so I think that's great. I want to share with people a number of sources of information that are powerful. We've mentioned some, but I'll mention some others. and I'll try and run through this quickly. When I post to my blog this video, besides having it air on Channel 22 cable in Thurston County, Washington, 3 times a week during April 2022, I'll also post it to my blog, which is www.parallaxperspectives.org. It's Parallax has 1 R and 2 L's in it, parallaxperspectives.org. Click TV programs or click a couple other options of issue categories, and I'll have this there. And I'll type up a thorough summary of what we said during this interview, along with links to the websites and sources of information and so forth. But I want to mention some just orally here. We mentioned Gary Davis, who took bold actions decades ago to promote world citizenship as a smarter alternative to narrow nationalism. His book is called My Country is the World, and you can buy it through www.worldcitizengov.org/books. Our guest produced a film promoting Gary Davis's campaign to create world citizenship as a viable and practical alternative to the status quo. And you can watch the film that they created, which is The World is My Country, similar to Davis's book title, but flipped. Visit the website, theworldismycountry.com. Earlier in this interview, we showed Martin Sheen's 1-minute trailer about the film. And here's a link to that trailer is www.theworldismycountry.com/trailer. So you can see that there. There's a link to the 2-minute trailer showing Gary Davis interrupting the United Nations in Paris in 1948, as Arthur told us about, on behalf of the people who are not represented by the nation state, quote unquote, leaders. I really recommend. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and people don't need to have to remember or write down all those forward slashes. If you just go to theworldismycountry.com, you can click around and find all those other sites. So just remember that it's actually, basically, we made the title an affirmation so that every time somebody says the title, they're saying, the world is my country. And so we wanted that to be an affirmation as well as a title.
Right. And so when I post this information to my blog, I'll have these various links and also saying you what the link takes you to, so people can sort through and find what they want. I do recommend the powerful, informative 33-minute film War Without Winners that we talked about earlier in this interview. It's hosted by actor Paul Newman, and Arthur had produced that film and then updated it in 1983 to inform people about the escalating dangers of nuclear weapons. And in case anybody's not paying attention to the last 3 decades since the Cold War ended, the nuclear arms race is escalating again. But the news media don't report on it because there's been a bipartisan consensus in this country for decades and decades that we need to have lots of military, we need to have lots of nuclear weapons. And since there's a bipartisan consensus, there's no disagreement, no issue for news media to report on. And so the status quo is unreported. So anyway, you can watch that 33-minute film, warwithoutwinners.com. And I enthusiastically agree with the article that Arthur had written titled The Hero with the Big Gun, Is It All a Myth? And I'll have that link on my blog as well. It's e-arth.com. It's a great essay. It's short, it's a few pages. And there's a lot of stuff on my blog, parallaxperspectives.org, especially in the categories for peace and nonviolence and nuclear weapons. And a lot of us like the pacifist organizer George Lakey, who's written a lot of smart, powerful articles and books about nonviolence. And many of his articles, including recent ones, are posted at wagingnonviolence.org. So nonviolent national defense also is a practical remedy. And very soon I'll be producing one of my TV programs pointing out how, explaining how nonviolent national defense will be a powerful and practical remedy. And so look for that on my TV program. Let's see. I just need to do a quick time check here. Melanie, you'd already mentioned the idea of when your feature-length film comes back onto Link TV and PBS, people will be able to sign on as like sponsor for the PBS thing. Mention how to do that again briefly.
Well, you can connect with us off the website. You can contact us there to promote when it comes out on Link TV. You can get on our email list on the website. To be a sponsor, we would love. It's a great opportunity presented by, and so we would love to talk to you. Just you can email us at futurewavefilms@gmail.com. So that's a direct line to us.
Okay, and the website is
theworldismycountry.com, and then you find you just click on take action. We've got several things you can do to take action, and one of them is you can sign up for the email list. You can also be a volunteer.
Yeah,
you can donate. It's everything.
Yeah, a lot of things we've talked about here are links on that website. I want to thank Arthur Kanigis and Melanie Bennett for their wisdom and insights and efforts. I thank the people who've been watching. When we were preparing for the interview, Melanie told me that she and Arthur want to show what a better future would look like. I hope we've had a chance to do that and give people hope. We can indeed turn things around, but it depends on ordinary people taking smart actions. The world's people need that now, and I encourage people to think creatively, as we've tried to do during this TV interview. Also, I think if people could do whatever they sense is needed, do that, because different people will have different strategies, and it's all cumulative as long as it's all nonviolent and strategically related to our goals for peace and a united humanity. The many wars raging on our planet are bad enough. A nuclear war could kill billions of people and destroy human civilization. Politics, as usual, has gotten us into this mess. Politics, as usual, cannot save us. The global system is seriously broken. We need to ground ourselves in our best values. We need to think very creatively and very boldly so that we can create a fresh system, global citizenship, without hierarchies, so all people can live peacefully and enjoy satisfying lives free from oppression. You know what you've seen in the world around us. How do you feel about how governments have been functioning? What are your best values? What are your deepest needs? Let's replace that broken system of nationalism with global citizenship. We need to challenge the longstanding assumptions that have led to the cruel status quo. We're already doing this in some areas of society. Nowadays, we already know everything in the environment is interconnected, so we know we cannot throw anything away because there is no away. We're all connected. We've also figured out in our society that endless economic growth is not possible because the earth and our resources are finite. Human beings have seriously disrupted the climate, so we need to change our consciousness about that. Likewise, we've figured out, many of us, that men and white people cannot assume that they need to be in charge of everything. So we're already doing some consciousness shifting now. Now let's add a fourth consciousness shift. Let's challenge the longstanding assumptions of nationalistic rivalry and divisiveness. Global citizenship is the practical solution that the earth needs now. Also, nonviolent national defense is a very practical remedy that would save enough money that we could solve all the world's problems and survive with a better humanity if we have a nonviolent national defense. So look for an upcoming TV program in this series explaining why nonviolent national defense is the practical alternative that we need now. You can get information about a wide variety of issues related to peace, social justice, and nonviolence through my blog, www.parallaxperspectives.org. Parallax has one R and two L's, parallaxperspectives.org. You can also phone me at 360-491-9093. We are all one human family. We all share one planet. We can create a better world, but we all have to work at it, and the world needs exactly what you have to offer. Thanks a bunch.